So welcome everyone to one of the last sessions of the day. I believe it is the last actually, and it is around accreditation. My name is Victoria Alexander. I'm Vice President for Curriculum Development here at the Learning House. And part of my responsibilities is to help our partner clients navigate the waters of accreditation, especially when they're doing fully online programs. However, I am not going to be the expert today. We are going to turn it over to some of our fabulous clients and partner schools who are going through the accreditation process for online courses or online programs. And we're going to have a discussion partially led by our general counsel or corporate counsel at the Learning House, Mr. Jay Hatcher. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Jay so that he can introduce the topic of accreditation.
Good afternoon, everybody. Once again, we want to thank everybody for coming to the 2012 Connect Conference. We really appreciate you all coming. Obviously, you the clients are the reason that we do what we do and the reason we're successful, so thank you all. I think that we all know that the goal of accreditation is to make sure that institutions of higher learning, that colleges and universities are providing a high quality of education to their students. And then the question is, how do we make sure that that happens? Obviously, as we all know, we have different accrediting bodies throughout the country that develop different criteria, different standards. Once they develop that criteria and standards, they go do peer evaluations, they do on-site visits, they do surveys, et cetera, and try to determine and make sure that the institutions of higher education are providing that high level of education for the students. Now, as we probably all know, over the last few days, over fairly recent times, we've had some fairly big decisions that have come down as far as whether schools are properly accredited or not, and whether or not they're allowed to provide education in certain states and whatever the case may be. And I think that as we've all noticed, things are getting tighter and tighter, so I think it's probably more important for us, as well as you all, to make sure that we are complying with what the regulations of each accrediting body are, and to make sure that we are providing as high a level education as we can for our students. Luckily for us, luckily for me, we have three great folks here that are partner schools of ours that are willing to come and speak to you all today to give their thoughts on accreditation and what their experiences have been, and also some of the pitfalls and some of the issues that they have seen. We have Tracy Wyatt from York College. Welcome, Tracy. We have Mike Hoffman from St. Bonaventure, and we have Colleen Dorado from Wesley, correct?
Yes.
So welcome, everybody. And I'm going to turn it back over to Victoria and let her get the discussion going. But obviously, we want this to be we want it to be a question and answer. We want you all to be a part of the conversation and want you all to obviously bring up any issues that you all have had. So we just want it to be a discussion, okay?
Excellent, thank you. So to get started, I'll tell you what, I actually want the panelists to introduce themselves, tell us who you are. Obviously, Jay's introduced you by name and school, but if you could tell us what your title is at your institution and what your regional accrediting body that you're representing here. So give us your title as well as your regional accrediting body.
I'm Colleen. My title is Assistant VP of Academic Affairs, and that encompasses online learning and assessment. And we are with Middle States.
Hi, I'm Mike Hoffman, and I'm with St. Bonaventure, and we have Middle States as our regional accrediting body as well. And I'm the Executive Director for Information Technology, so I'm the resident technology geek. We also have professional accreditations from NCATE and AACSB.
My name's Tracy Wyatt. I'm the Academic Dean with York College, and our accrediting body is the Higher Learning Commission, we just recently had our visit, and looking forward to sharing that with you.
And can I go back in and chime in? We are NCATE, NLN, and ABA for paralegal.
Excellent, and that's actually going to come in handy because some of the questions we have today prepared are around the differences between regional accreditation standards, national, and then any specialized and state accreditation standards. So just to tell you how the format will go, first of all, we'll ask that anyone who would like to ask a question, please feel free to raise your hand and we'll allow you to ask a question from the panelists. To get started, I would like to ask a general question, which is, please tell us, each one of you, what is your experience right now in terms of online learning? Are you doing courses? Are you doing programs? And what is the status of the accreditation for any online courses or programs that you're doing?
Okay. We are doing courses right now. all core courses, and we offer them 2 times. Winter term, which is a first week in December through 3rd week in January, and then in the summer. We don't do any of the regular traditional semester online. Where we are working with faculty in order to have our tenured and tenure track faculty are the ones that own the curriculum. So therefore the programs that go online have to be from areas where they want to go online, there's a need to go online, and we have the faculty to support it online. We are not going to go adjunct route, right? We are going to do it from within, which in the long run we think will help us with our accreditation. We are about to put on work with Learning House, an MED and an RN to MSN online. And that means we will have to go with our NLN accreditation and align what we do in our assessments all the way through and make it comparable to what's face-to-face. So this is, we're about ready to call Learning House for a lot of help. But it's interesting, we've got buy-in now. And we've just been told we have buy-in for MED, from the MED program. So we're not fighting, or we're not in strong discussions anymore about what should go online. Those seem to be the ones that are going to go online first.
So at St. Bonaventure, our situation sounds very similar to Colleen's. We do not have any fully online programs as of yet. We have courses, most of which are offered during our summer term, which was predominantly because that's where we got the least resistance from faculty, because it being a highly residential campus, most of our students left in the summer. We've had some undercurrent for a number of years about quality in online education, some concerns from the faculty. We have tried to address that, and it's actually one of the major reasons we partnered with the Learning House, was to make sure that we had access to training and instruction for our faculty so that they could do a good job when they did teach online. We have decided to launch fully online programs starting in the fall of 2013. So we know we're going to have accreditation issues. We're already seeking state authorization, which I think is an important point. That can actually sometimes be more onerous and take more time, we think, than even accreditation at some level, depending on your state. So we are having a visit by Middle States in 2 years, and we fully expect that they will be very rigorously looking at our online programs as well as our on-ground, and we are trying to prepare for that. As I mentioned, we have 2 professional accrediting bodies as well, so we do a lot of accreditation at St. Bonaventure, an awful lot of work. And can you guess who our full-time staff person who is in charge of accreditation is?
Gonna guess
Nobody.
You? Oh.
Probably like a lot of you. It's a group of really generous people that donate, or basically donate their time to pay attention to these issues and make sure we are all doing the right thing. So that's kind of where we're at.
And your college's experience is very similar again to Colleen and Mike's. We started off about 2.5, maybe 3 years ago, offering just a basket load of basically gen ed and some program courses to our non-graduated alumni, students who would go through the program and then would leave with some courses yet undone. And we were far enough down the road now where we got ourselves along the way where we have applied and have already had our visit for full program accreditation. And that visit was in March, so we're expecting a positive result, yay. And yeah, Tina Hogan, who's been our representative, has done a splendid job in Learning House as a total entity. So we'll be hopefully offering 4 full programs and 2 associate degrees. We'll be approved sometime in August, we anticipate, with programs being uploaded as we move along the way, because there's a lot of legwork involved in getting everything up and going, but essentially that's where we're at. Our next step, of course, will be to add our we have a Master's of Education in Curriculum and Instruction that was designed as a seated program, which obviously isn't going to work for us, so we're going to be putting it online as well, but that comes after we have moved forward with our current situation.
So it sounds like we have a couple individuals that are in the early stages of looking at the accreditation process, and then one who has gone through the site visit. From your experience on both sides, I would like to hear a little bit about time investment. I think that was mentioned already about how much time it takes in terms of people being generous. But for those who may be in the audience, can you give an estimate of how much time you've invested so far into the planning process of at least getting accredited, even if you haven't gone through the full accreditation cycle yet?
Wow. I'm not sure if I have I would say what has helped us as far as time, as we've gone through and looked at assessment on ground and preparing to really fulfill all of the middle states requirements or the accreditation requirements on ground, particularly as assessing student learning. That helped us get ready to talk about and be specific about how we're going to move online. If we wouldn't have been assessing student learning on ground, we would have been in much greater trouble trying to assess it online. And so that investment of time, though it wasn't specifically for the online, I think if you've done that groundwork or in the process of doing some of that groundwork, that's good fertile cultivation towards getting you forward online. Because one of the key questions we know from middle states is, number one, are they integrated? Is the online program this program out there that you're doing separately, or is it really integrated with your face-to-face and comparable, and how do you know? And they're going to go to our assessment and our outcomes to see how we know. So that kind of investment really helps as we are getting ready to go put together the report for the change request form. And with middle states, if you have 50% or more of a program online, that triggers a change request form. So what we're doing right now, the programs that we're putting together for online are already face-to-face. We're going to raise up the number of online courses that are in them right now under the 50% first, and then move it to over the 50%. Why are we doing that? People hours, scheduling issues. It allows us to work through some things at a slower pace a little bit. But the intention is we will still be there in 2 years. We will have the 2 programs online and a third one ready, but we're going to go halfway first.
So our advice is just to do 49% online, and then you're all set with accreditation.
Well, let me add to the HLC people that we're the same situation. You can do up to 49% of a program online without it being considered an online program. So
And that's pretty standard. Yes, question.
So is that what you did for HLC?
that's how, yeah,
Set it up and then ask
we got
for
their
the-
approval, not accreditation, but we got their approval to go ahead and do up to 49% of
A program.
programs, or
Uh-huh.
in this case, courses. In this case, it was actually the courses. We did 49% of our overall course basket, up to
Oh.
something like, it was mostly, yeah, it was, well, we did all of our gen eds. We put all of our gen eds online,
Okay.
which obviously took up a lot. And that's why we're able to do the AA and the AS, and the general studies degree will be fairly easy because a lot of the courses are already developed and online.
And I'm going to ask that if you do have a question, I'll bring the microphone to you. So we'll go here and then we'll come back to you in just a sec. Did you have a question? Yes.
Two things that you said before. One was the faculty resistance, and I had a question about that. Well, let's ask that one first. What did you do to unresist them? Because I have the feeling that that may be something that we run into.
Well, we recognized you have to really make sure that you have the support of the president, and in this case, the board and the president were on the same page, and then really nothing else mattered. It's fighting City Hall, and so we essentially, I understand your concern. Yeah, I know.
Have you heard
Okay.
about passive aggressive?
Well, I know. It's, well, the thing is, the faculty that were resistant were your older faculty that
Yep.
had been there a long time. And we had a working, it was really fortuitous because we introduced our LMS system last year, our learning management system. Who would think that we had never had one before, but we didn't. And that was such a technological change for us that it kind of overwhelmed the older faculty, and they've been overwhelmed with so many technological advances at our school, and Tina will say this, that I think they kind of just gave up the fight, essentially. Well, I'm serious.
I'm hearing a little ageism here, and I'll just let it go by.
Well, I know, and I'm not trying to do that, because we actually, some of our most supportive faculty are older faculty as well. They're ones who understood and got it, and they worked with us. So it's not all true about the generational divide.
No,
but
it
there
is
was,
definitely not.
and I would agree, but there was a big one at our school, and so essentially we just had to work with them, because I mean, we certainly don't want to be, guilty of that, but it was a reality. I mean, the older faculty were resistant, the younger faculty weren't. In our situation, it's just the way it was.
So I'll take a stab at that too. At St. Bonaventure, we have some faculty that are less than excited about the prospect of teaching online. What we decided to do was initially, again, get our feet wet with online education. And the summer was a good way to start. That was the least confrontational way. We don't force anybody to teach online. We strongly believe that if we put a gun to somebody's head, they're going to do a terrible job. So we want to try to encourage it. And what we've decided to do with our fully online programs is start at the graduate level, because we have a lot of faculty that are petrified that their students, if we do it at the undergrad level, will be sitting in their dorm rooms taking online classes, and they really don't like that image. The other reason why we chose the graduate programs, quite frankly, is because it's easier to get curricular changes through our graduate council than it is through our faculty senate, who is legislative over undergraduate matters. So we kind of looked at the political landscape and said, graduate makes sense for a number of reasons, not the least of which it helps us not avoid the faculty resistance question, but at least mitigate it a bit at the front end. And then we hope that, and this is another reason why we're in Learning House, is we want to really be very successful out of the gate. I think a successful launch for us will help build support among the faculty, and an unsuccessful one will sink it. That they will point to that and just say, we told you so.
Well, and one of the things that we did to piggyback on what Mike said, even though there's a certain amount of, this is the direction we're heading, we would like for you to come along. If you don't, okay. Was we tried to accommodate their fears by saying, if you don't want to teach online, you have first right of refusal, that's fine, but we're going to hire an adjunct and we're going to still offer this course. Some of their positions were, we don't want you to teach this course at all because it's my course. Well, that's not your choice. That's not an option. So either you can teach the course, or we're going to find someone else to teach the course. But not teaching the course at all isn't even up for discussion. And that's where you have to dig your heels in. And once they understood that and that we meant it, some of them got on board and started teaching and liked it. Others still don't teach and probably won't ever teach online.
Yeah. Okay, the second piece of it is...
I want to chime in here.
You have something? Oh, good.
Because I think we're more closely aligned with what Mike said. However, we did start with the undergraduate and core courses because they're going to be the people that are going to vote ultimately in the curriculum committee and in the faculty senate on going forward. So we wanted to make sure there were undergraduate faculty that had opportunity to teach online. The other thing, and we're just having this discussion now coming from within the faculty. The other thing that's happening now is faculty are starting to say, I think we should have a discussion about the value of online and what it could present to the school. It is better for it to come from the faculty than from me. And so we are at that point, and 2 weeks ago it just happened, someone came in and said, Colleen, can we have this discussion in a fuller base? I said, that's a wonderful idea. Let's do that, And so why are we doing that? Because we've got to come together moving forward. And so did it take a while? Tina will tell you, and Rachel before Tina. Yes, they came to our school 18 months ago and had faculty presentations where the first presentation was well attended and the second presentation we were going out and trying to find faculty to come because they just would not entertain the idea. They were not ready at that point. And so it really involves knowing what your culture is and what is your outcome, what do you want to have at the end of this? What is the president saying? What's the board saying? And how's your work going to be done? What kind of climate are you going to create? For us, it was, yes, it needs to be done, but it needs to be from within with some encouragement and support from the top.
Because I think I'm going to be expected to go back and, talk to our department at least about some of this. And Beckfield already has its on-campus classes doing sort of a web assist where we're using the Learning House format and everything. And I figured if they start with that, I mean, you're still in class, but you've got that lovely format. My second question, and I apologize if I'm doing too much here, but I have questions. Are the accrediting agencies mired in the past too? I go back to when I was in New York, Northeastern states? We went through that, and also NLN, and that's coming up again. So I just wondered if they, want to do it the way we've always done it, and we don't know what you're talking about when you're going online.
I found HLC very progressive, no problem.
And I think the very fact that they're publishing guides like this speaks to the fact that they are becoming much more progressive about this issue.
Yeah.
And your individual accrediting bodies like NLN and NCATE are seeking to work with the regional, because we have to work together if you're going to be jointly accredited. And in Delaware, we don't have an option. The state does not accredit. NCATE does. So if the state wants accredited education programs from their colleges, they have to work with Middle States and NCATE in order to have Delaware State approved programs in their colleges. So
This is an HLC question. In reading what constitutes an online program, one of the things that they have written is that if 50% of the courses or more could be offered online, do they hold to that? Because that's a pretty broad statement. So if all your gen ed are offered online, and then you offer technical programs that are online, that could constitute 50% or more of your degree.
In our case, we don't have technical or certification programs, so
Okay.
I'm not sure how to answer that question.
Or an associate degree even.
Associate.
Associate degree, that's what I meant, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, because like bricklayers or something, we don't do certification programs, but we didn't run into that problem. I'm not sure how to exactly answer that question, but we offer, I think it's roughly 28 programs, not counting the individual certifications, because every education is one program, and then there's a myriad of certifications, so you don't count those. So we have a total of 28 programs, and so roughly the 6 comes up to roughly the 20%ish thereabouts. I mean, there's still a little room for us to add another program or two, but we're close to that level.
I think I can answer that.
Okay.
Yes, they do hold it.
Okay.
If a student is even if you have the same class offered face-to-face and online, if any of those programs, if you have a student that could complete more than 50% or more online, then you have to get approved for that program to be online. If they could, even though they could take it face-to-face or online, if they have the opportunity to take 50% online, then it has to be treated as an online program.
I bet a lot of schools are violating that.
Probably, but we called and specifically asked, that's why I know.
And real quickly, I'll interject. That's one of the reasons why when we talk about going online, it's really important to have the program planned in a way that you know exactly which courses you're going to offer online versus saying, well, we'll just offer a smattering so that you don't go over that 50%. So we really encourage schools to say, these are the exact courses we're going to put online of these exact programs, and that way you stay on the right side of things. We'd hate people to get in trouble, so.
And a comment too, we're just in the process. We have our HLC visit scheduled for the end of August coming up. And to address that 50%, rule of a program, something else plays into that too, and that is, at least the way we are interpreting it, is that the transfer articulation as well. I mean, you know, the programs we're looking at, for example, RN to BSN, the entire program is there, but the online component up to this point has been under 50% of the whole BSN program, and so that's how we've interpreted it. The one thing that hasn't been addressed yet, which again, Learning House helped us by supplying us with a couple of proposal forms to review and look at. Frequently, you know, the online program is not a new program. What is new is the modality of the instruction. And so that does provide some comfort in dealing with the accreditation, because you're not really creating new courses. You've got the Ruby slipper, you're just changing the size. You're putting it on the left foot instead of the right foot. And so in that sense, at least personally, because I'm the one in charge of writing this thing and guiding us through, that was comforting to know, because you aren't inventing something new. You've got a lot of tools already in place with your existing programs. You're just changing the modality, the delivery method.
And along those lines, because of learning outcomes, they actually found that our syllabi for our online programs were better than the syllabi for the seated programs because of the rigor and plus, quite frankly, the quality matters rubric that is used with Learning House. And so we're going back and looking at all of our seated syllabi to make sure that they're equitable with the online syllabi.
That makes me smile.
Yeah.
And one thing that I think is kind of ironic is at least at my institution, online education is held to a higher standard by our own faculty than is face-to-face. I mentioned earlier that we contracted with Learning House to make sure we had the training and tools for faculty to learn the pedagogy behind online instruction and how to be a good online teacher. Do we do that for our face-to-face faculty? They come out of PhD programs with very specific knowledge sets in certain subject matter areas, but I'm not convinced we provide them with a lot of the tools and training they need to be effective instructors in the classroom. But it just is, it's ironic to me though that, you know, because of the modality, it's really treated differently and put under perhaps a bit more powerful of a microscope than even our face-to-face.
So before we close out, we got about 15 minutes left. I had a final question that I wanted to ask the panelists and see if they could speak about it, and anybody else. From my personal experience, obviously some of the bigger concerns with going fully online is around the outcomes, the ability to assess your students effectively and make sure that there's sort of an equitable instructional value going into online as well as on campus. But also in terms of the support services, which I believe were addressed to some degree early on. But things like library services, things like working with the office responsible for students with disabilities, working with to make sure that students who do receive financial aid, sometimes that can be a little bit of a difficulty getting around for students that are not coming on campus or who live at distances. So can you speak at all to some of the support services for students that you've had to deal with in making sure there's going to be equitable access for online students that is available for face-to-face?
We're still working on this. That's to be honest with you. When I think of disability support services, we are not up to par with what we need to be. In fact, I know you had an impromptu session here that was replacing another session. I went, oh, I wish I would have gotten in on that session, because that's a very needed area. And so with disability support, I know we have work to do, which is one of the reasons why I'm glad there's some time. With library resources, we've just started to really do major assessment on library. I don't say just started, but it seems to be more overt and intentional now, and working to make sure we've amassed the support that students need when they're doing not just online, but online classes, but even face-to-face classes. They'd much rather have access to databases and other things now than necessarily books that they've got to go after. So that whole area has changed tremendously in our institution. The use of ebooks and contracting with companies for ebooks for the library has changed tremendously in our institution in the last 3 years. And the last thing, one of the reasons we are with Learning House is the 24/7 support for faculty, but also for students, and for housing the program. We don't have IT enough to house a program and keep it running and upgraded and train, and nor do we have IT enough to do a 24/7 student support. And if you're going to get into this field from a previous institution, you do need the 24/7. You do need some way to have thought through how we will support somebody that's studying at 1 o'clock in the morning, and we couldn't do it. So that's another major Learning House contribution that we look to them for.
So at St. Bonaventure, we realize there's a lot we need to do on the student service side. When we decided we were going to get really serious about online learning and contracted with the Learning House, our provost created a task force, which I sit on, and a number of higher level executives and academic administration sit on. And I suspect I'm on that group for 2 reasons. One, because I'm the IT guy in the room, and 2, I'm infamous for putting together Gantt charts and project plans. So we have and I make them very pretty, lots of colors, a very long project plan with all of these different infrastructural needs that we're going to need to meet in order to pull this off. And a lot of those are student service pieces. And some of these things have just sort of gotten more complicated and kind of just come to the surface as we've turned over one rock and there's 3 more. We have to look at library, obviously. We're looking at bookstore. Let's make sure that it's easy for them to get their books. Tutoring services, billing, things that you kind of take for granted. And when you're just offering a few courses online but not a whole program, you still have that crutch of, they can still come in and go to the business office to pay a bill or whatever. We won't be able to do that anymore for students in California taking a class from St. Bonaventure that's south of Buffalo. So we really try to be very systematic in looking at all the different areas that we need to address in the student service side, along with others, to make sure that we're up to snuff and ready to do this. And we don't have a student saying, look, I need to do X and we can't do it. We don't want to have that happen. So I would say my advice would be also to make sure you have the right players in the room. Because there are some things, there's a lot of things that go on in a university. It doesn't need to be everybody, but if you have people that at least can broadly speak to the different areas, that's really going to help you.
Ditto. Again, the Learning House support for both tech and then for faculty and course development is tremendous. But then you have to really work with, because they're going to come in and they're going to talk to your financial aid director and ask them specific questions about financial aid resources for online students. They're going to talk to your admissions director and ask them about the admissions process. When an online kid calls up wanting a class, who do you go to? What's the process? And they got to know all that. And so there needs to be a seamless strand through all of your processes. And then the big challenge, of course, is students who need assistance from their faculty. You have to really emphasize, because they don't keep office hours, so you have to make sure there's the virtual office hours, Skyping, messaging, whatever. And when it comes to outcomes and quality, that's where you have to really stay on top of your adjunct online and professors to make sure that they're meeting with their students, because they're going to talk to students. They're going to call up students, and because you have to provide those names of students, and they're going to call them up and they're going to say, what was your experience? How was it? How did you find this? How did you find that? And so forth.
Excellent. Question, yes.
Is there any understanding on the part of Higher Learning Commission, for example, or Mid-States, that in many cases an institution can only go so far prior to gaining accreditation, and therefore maybe an institution has a limited number of students who have had online experience because you've only gone so far
Right.
before being accredited. I mean, kind of a chicken and egg kind of situation.
They worked with us. It was great. I mean, I think the expectations in 2 years at our full visit will be a little higher than they were at our first visit, because they visited us in March, and then when we have our full overall college visit in 2 years, we're going to be the whole program, both seated and online, will be reviewed at that point, and they'll have higher expectations. I mean, they wrote as much in their draft letter that they'll review everything at that point.
So when they came the first time, were you over 50% or under 50% for your programs?
Under 50%. I mean, we're applying for 20% of our overall programs to go online, roughly 20%,
Okay.
for initial accreditation.
But
We
they
were
were-
offering 49% of courses,
Okay.
per program or per whatever.
So the way HLC works is as soon as you submitted that substantive change, it triggered your
Yeah.
on-site visit.
Yes.
Whereas with some of the other accrediting bodies like SACS and middle states, when you do substantive change, it's up to them whether or not they're going to come for a site visit or not. So a little bit of a nuanced difference there.
Mm-hmm. And HLC won't necessarily visit you when you do a substantive change asking for accreditation with online. It's just in our case, for some reasons, they chose to come and visit us. Nothing bad, but.
Any other questions? Well, if we can, let's give a round of applause to our panelists. I think they did a fabulous job. They had no idea what questions I was going to ask them, so they were honest. I'll say this about accreditation as we close. I think across the board, regardless of what accreditation body that you're looking to seek approval from for your online programs, they just want to make sure that you have thought through what you're asking for, because online is a big endeavor. And part of what we are here to do is support you, but if you're going to do it, make sure you've worked through all of the processes your existing on-campus students would go through and thought about how they translate into the online environment. And the other thing is, it's very important to make sure that you as an organization are speaking the same language, because if they do come and do a site visit, they're going to want to make sure everybody's saying the same thing. So those two factors, I think, are really important. We appreciate your time here today. Have a wonderful rest of the evening, and thank you for coming to Connect.